Hey everyone, welcome back to the Muse and That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and joining me today, Chris, aka Atonal Ascent. How you doing, brother?
Good. Good to talk to you, Brian.
Good to talk to you too. And you've also been part of the Band Together group for a good while.
Yeah, so I want to say March of this year is when I first heard about Band Together, and I've been uh, fairly active on there ever since.
Yeah, I recently joined too, and it's especially great with the community that's recently reached out as well. So the last few interviews have come from people who've at least commented on some of my posts in there. So
Nice.
that's all good. So I guess who was it that reached out? I guess did Christina or Greg kind of talk to you about it, or how'd you find out about Band Together?
To be honest, I don't even remember. I think somehow I stumbled upon the Box and Sticks, their band Facebook page. And then from there, I believe I might have been invited to join the group. To be honest with you, I don't even really remember.
I see. That's fine too. Normally, I would say accidents tend to be pretty good in certain cases, especially
Hmm.
in the case of this one, we should say. So I guess which part
Yeah.
of the states are you from?
So I am in southern New Jersey, about 15 minutes outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, you're in the southern part there. I was. How close are you to Cape May actually? Because I've been there a good bit.
Cape May is approximately 2 hours away.
Ah, you're a good drive away. All right. I guess how's it this time of the year?
Not too bad. We had a really bad heat wave probably about 2, 3 weeks ago, but for the past couple of weeks, it's been mid 80s, low 90s. So it hasn't been horrible. Typical summer weather, and the humidity hasn't been really bad. Maybe 1 or 2 days out of the week, the humidity gets bad.
Yeah, it's been a little strange out here in terms of August because it's normally been pretty dry. Normally the grass starts turning a lot brown, so you don't have to worry about mowing the grass too much. So,
Yeah.
but it's been entirely opposite. It's been a wet August out here. I'm from the Pennsylvania Pittsburgh region,
Okay.
so I guess are you a Flyers fan or are you a Devils fan?
Oh, Flyers 100% because I was born in Philadelphia. So,
I see. That's fine.
yep.
Actually, my brother-in-law is also a Flyers fan too, so we like to bust his balls every now and again whenever the Penguins get one up on him too. So
I'll bet.
yeah, no, but I'm curious to see how they do this year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So Chris, welcome to my podcast right here. The way this is going to work is I'm just going to ask you some simple questions, and we're going to get to know you more both as the musician and as the individual too. So
Cool.
I got the questions right here. Ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right. So your story's a little bit different because last few interviews I've done, people have done like yours is more of like a hobby, and other people have done it like more as some sort of quasi career because they have like a main job, but they're trying to get into like Spotify and the music and industry, that sort of thing too. So I guess
Right.
just to start with the first one here, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. I guess how'd you become a musician?
So I was raised in a house that was full of music. Um, my dad is a trombone player. Um, Back in the late '60s and the early '70s, he was a studio musician for Sigma Sound Studios, which was basically the headquarters of Gamble and Huff. So the Spinners, the OJs, South Soul Orchestra, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother. He was part of all of that as a studio musician. And my grandfather on my mother's side and my mother's brother, my uncle, were both violinists in the Philadelphia classical music scene. So there was always a piano in my house. There was always a turntable in my house. The trombone, my dad was practicing the trombone pretty much every day. And we were always encouraged to listen to music and encouraged to explore learning an instrument. So the clarinet for myself, I tried the clarinet, I tried the violin, and eventually in the mid 80s, my parents bought me a bass and bought my 15-year-old brother a guitar, which happens to be right here. Still have it. And we started playing. I was about 13 at the time. Once my brother moved away to college, he did not take that guitar with him. So I kind of put the bass down for a while. picked up that guitar and started learning the guitar, self-taught, playing whatever, Ozzy tunes, Metallica tunes, whatever else I could get my hands on. But yeah, just kind of sort of happened organically because that was the culture that I was raised in, and I just kind of kept running with it, and only had a handful of professional lessons in my life. I've been playing for about 35 to 38 years, something like that. So only a handful of professional lessons. I'm not a classically trained musician, like 99.8% self-taught, and mostly do it for my own enjoyment.
When you said Aussie tunes, are you like trying to do like the Randy Rhoads sort of music too?
Sort of. When I started getting into Ozzy, Randy had already passed, and it was Zach Wild at that point. So I can't quite remember the name of the album, but Perry Mason was on there. Crazy Babies was one of the songs that I tried to learn how to play. But yeah, just I had listened to Black Sabbath and Ozzy before then, but I hadn't really tried to play any of the tunes until after Randy had passed.
I was say, man, Randy Rhoads, that's quite a step up to be honest, because you know how crazy his guitar playing was as well.
Yeah.
And, actually, that was more in the '80s too, and I guess that was '82 when he passed, right?
Yeah, so he was, early on.
Well, it could have been actually, because man, he died young, and like,
Yeah.
well, that one it was kind of a stupid decision, really, and that's kind of tragic as well. I
Yep.
I wish I could remember the album too, but I know Crazy Babies I think was the ones that play the most from that Ozzy album too. But I did not know Perry Mason was from it too. I thought that was a different guitar player who played that one.
Yeah, no, that's Zach Wild.
Did you know he's actually in Pantera now?
Yep. They actually came through not long ago, and I fully intended on going to see them, but things have been kind of crazy around here lately, so haven't had much time to go to any shows.
You and me both. I guess work kind of gets in the way, and I guess family life and everything too.
Yep.
So I guess some of the videos I did check out on YouTube channel, it looks like you're kind of just jamming around. Do you go to specific festivals or something, or something held at maybe a local park or something?
Yeah, so usually I don't play out. Like I said, most of this is for my own enjoyment. I do play probably once or twice a month at a church that I attend, usually on the bass. But not too long ago, one of the guys that I grew up with, his wife is a singer-songwriter. Her name is Loretta Allen Montgomery. And she was playing like a lawn show in front of a rock memorabilia shop in Cherry Hill, which is not far from where I live. It's called Woodstock Trading Company. So there's a lot of Grateful Dead memorabilia in there. There's a lot of handmade jewelry. But Loretta had this gig to play this lawn show, this lawn concert. And the people that were supposed to back her up, unfortunately had to cancel last minute. And she saw that I was posting videos of myself playing on my back porch and stuff, and reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to put together a couple songs and come and fill in while she took her breaks and what have you. And I agreed. So that was like right at the start of the summer. And then shortly after that, she invited me to play a county fair that she plays every year. So I was able to join her on that as well. Actually added a couple more songs to my set list. So instead of 4 songs, I played 7. But yeah, so it's just really been those two outings. And I usually don't sing and play at the same time. So it kind of brought me a little bit out of my comfort zone and forced me to practice doing that. And I'm still working on it. If you couldn't tell from the videos, I'm still working on singing and playing at the same time. But I'm getting better.
I do have to ask, like, how musicians actually do that, because I know some people who do bass guitar, for instance, they'll play it with their fingers and everything. And I'm like, I'm trying to think to myself, you're figuring out how to do your chords, but you're also trying to remember the lyrics too. So it's like, how do you do one and two together? That's the thing.
Yeah, it's tough. And one of the things that I find is most difficult about it is if the vocal pattern is completely divergent from the chord progression or the strumming pattern of the chord progression, which happens often in many songs, it makes it that much more difficult to perform. A simple example would be Heart-Shaped Box, right, by Nirvana. Super simple song, right, in my opinion. Not a very hard song to play. The lyrics and the vocal patterns are pretty straightforward, but when you get to the part where he says, "Forever in debt to your priceless advice," that vocal pattern, the way he sings that, and the single note picking that he's doing within those three simple chords that he's playing are so different that it makes it almost impossible for me to do. I've been trying to learn this song for months because I kind of sort of promised my followers that I would do a full-length playthrough video, because most of the time I just do clips, to celebrate 1,000 followers. Well, that was like 2 months ago, and I promised I did like a little sort of a poll to see which song I should play, and Heart-Shaped Box won that poll. So for the past 2 months, I've been trying to learn this song, and I'm still having problems with that one little spot. I'll get it though. I'll get it. But yeah, it's totally different for me because I've always just played, and any other types of bands that I've been in, there's always been someone else singing, or we've just been jamming instrumentally. So this is a little bit different for me, and I like it because it challenges me to better myself as a person and as a musician.
Actually, it gets a lot more tougher when you get to like the heavier sort of metal as well.
Oh yeah, I'll bet.
Oh yeah, you have no idea. But I guess let's go ahead and jump into your instruments right there. I guess how many guitars and how many bass you got right there?
So this is just a fraction of what I own. I have two basses. This 5-string behind me is an Alan Eden Disciple single cut, and then I have a 1996 Ibanez SR 800 4-string, which is tucked away somewhere right now. That's kind of my backup bass. This 5-string has been my primary bass ever since my wife gave it to me for Christmas a couple years ago. So this Les Paul copy right here, that's a Quart copy of a Les Paul. Like I said, my parents bought that from my brother. Brand new, 1984, 1985-ish. It's been in our family ever since. I've had it overhauled a couple times. The electronics are original, so all the wiring and the pickups and the pots and everything is original. Just a couple little grounding connections that had to be reworked over the years. This Epiphone SG that's to my right, that is on loan from a friend of mine. I love it. It's really lightweight. Action is awesome. The frets are a little rough, but it's an entry-level Epiphone, so I don't really expect much from it, but it's fun to play. And then this guy over here, all the way to my right, that is a guitar that I had built for me by my good friend Eric Stein. So Eric Stein is a musician. He owns Revelator Guitars. You can go online and look up revelatorguitars.com, and you can see all of his stuff. He specializes in like relict Stratocasters and Telecasters, and Jazzmasters and stuff like that. It's, they look old, but most of the components are brand new. So this is a body style that he came up with based on the offset Jazzmaster body style that he calls the Supertone. I asked him for a new finish because I don't like the old finish look, and he knocked it out of the park. He's got that tobacco burst with the black pick guard, the black P90s from Lola pickups on there, and it's just an amazing instrument. I love playing that thing.
That's
And
pretty
then
cool.
I
I was
I
gonna
have
say, I was gonna
yeah.
say,
Go
which
ahead.
one? What's the brand of your acoustic one that you've been playing in your videos?
So that the jumbo acoustic guitar that mostly I play in the videos is a Yamaha. That I inherited from my father-in-law. He passed away, I want to say 2 years ago at this point. He was a frontline Marine in Vietnam, and in his later years, started struggling with his organs just shutting down on him because of the effects of Agent Orange. But when he passed, my mother-in-law gave that guitar to me, so it's kind of an honor to have and a pleasure to play. And yeah, so that's the Yamaha that I play most of the time. I also have a Yamaha classical acoustic guitar, nylon strings. Right now, that's in my daughter's room. She's been kind of learning on that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it right now as far as guitars and basses go. For pedal board stuff, everything I have except for my tuner is from MXR. I have a Korg pitch black tuner, and then my pedal chain is pretty straightforward. I have the MXR Dynacomp. I have the MXR Super Badass Distortion. Then I have the MXR Bass Chorus Deluxe, which is sort of a chorus and a flanger in one. You just have to kind of manually hit a button on it in order to change it back and forth. It's designed for bass, but it also really works well with guitar, so I use it all the time. Then I have the MXR Carbon Copy after that. So that's pretty much it. I don't use any emulators. I don't have any other pedals besides those five, and I kind of just like keeping it simple. Usually, I play through my Hartke bass 25-watt bass practice amp, whether I'm playing bass or guitar, and that's just for practicing on my own. In my friend's basement, who is sort of my drummer. He's not really my drummer. I just kind of call him my drummer to show possession because he's such an awesome drummer. I don't want anybody else snatching him up. But my friend Richie Gill Jr., he's my drummer. My Laney BH100R 100-watt head and my 4x12 cabinet is in his basement. So when we jam together, I use that half stack so that I can get a little bit above his drumming because he just pounds and beats the piss out of his drums, and it's so amazing. But I need a little extra push to get over his playing. And then I also have from the mid to late '80s, I have a PD Bandit 75-watt amp that I hardly ever use, but it still works.
I was gonna say that's still a fraction of what you own.
That's pretty much everything.
Okay. I was gonna say when you say a fraction of what I own, it's almost like that's just a fraction of my power, that sort of thing.
Yeah, these four that you see are a fraction of what I own.
Okay, fair enough.
That's just what's on display.
All right, that's pretty cool. And I guess is that in the man cave?
Yeah, actually, this is our living room.
Close enough. Close enough. And before we do move on, thank you to your father-in-law for his service in Vietnam too. I guess did he share any stories about the whole thing with Agent Orange and I guess any sort of battles he was a part of?
He actually didn't like talking about it much.
I'll say I can't blame him either.
Yep.
I would say politically wise, it was a bad decision. It was really a bad decision. So
yeah, yeah, he was real young at the time, so I know that it had an impact on him, and I know that there was a lot of trauma that he carried with him up until he passed. But he definitely did get past it to a certain level to where he was able to function. But like I said, we never really had a conversation about the things he saw or the things that he had to endure.
I will say he didn't have anything with PTSD, did he?
There was some PTSD that he had, most notably with large gatherings. He would need to escape after a short period of time. So he couldn't do large gatherings, even if it was just family or large crowds for very long.
Ooh, that's definitely
Yeah.
hard to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see. And may he rest in peace. So,
Thank you.
no worries. I guess since you've been part of a family that's been pretty musically inclined, I guess, what is it that you love most about music? And I guess if you want to spread it out to your family too, I guess, what does your family love about music?
I guess for me, music has always been sort of a way to escape. So a lot of people like reading books in order to transport themselves somewhere other than, daily life and what we're struggling with and what we have to deal with. I never really got into reading. I tried, never really worked, but I always loved listening to music and certain types of music, almost all music, actually, if I'm honest, for me has sort of like a transportative, yeah, it's sort of, it enables for me to transport myself to a different place and forget about daily struggles and forget about traumas and stresses and anxieties. So for me, that's what, and not just listening to it, but also playing it has the same type of effect for me. So I'm able to use music as a way to cope. It's sort of like therapy. And for my family, I know that for my dad and for my mother's dad and my uncle, it was more of a way to provide for their families.
Absolutely. And that is actually what most people do say in terms of like music being like some sort of therapy in a way. So, particularly when I was interviewing a whole lot of drummers too. Actually, unfortunately, my interviews with like guitar players as well as bass players are a little far and few between, but hopefully we are starting to get a little bit more, especially after joining band together and everything too.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing too. And I think you were trying to look for almost transport to another dimension almost, but I think that's what the drugs are meant to do, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
well, close enough. I mean, you kind of lose yourself in a way because the adrenaline kicks in too, and the butterflies go away. Because you said earlier you kind of had a little trouble. Did you have a little trouble trying to go in front of crowds, in front of like all those people, and then try to perform like covers and stuff?
Yeah. Even if it's only a handful of people, I'm always a little anxious about it.
I would say yeah, because I actually used to play strings as well. I was a cello player. I know you mentioned some of your family was violin players. So
Yeah.
I know going to concerts, the fear and the anxiety and everything just went away as soon as you start playing the notes. So everything just kicks right into. So it's always good.
Yeah.
So I guess as another thing too, kind of jumping into COVID right now. I guess how bad did COVID impact you?
Um, so for me and my family, I mean, I'll start with like my work life because that's one of the things that everybody kind of brings up. The basically, the entire country shut down to a certain level. Small businesses closed. Small businesses went out of business. Big businesses, even to a certain degree, lost some traction. But for me, I work in natural gas construction, and for work, we never skipped a beat because the company that I worked for immediately put certain protocols and processes in place, such as social distancing, frequent sanitizing of tools and our hands, not being all in the same vehicle at the same time, things like that. And we didn't have um, this type of situation where we had to deal with people directly all the time. We can just go out to a construction job and do our thing and not have to interact with general public or customers and things of that nature. So we really didn't skip a beat work-wise. That being said, my family basically did not leave the house for approximately a month. My wife and I went out probably once or twice within that month period to do some shopping, and just to make sure that we had enough to keep ourselves going. But once that initial 2 week to a month period passed, we really kind of just started living our lives as we did before, with just a heightened sense of awareness. We fortunately did not lose any family members or close friends to the virus. My wife and I did eventually get it. I want to say a year or two after it initially hit, and it hit us both very differently. For myself, I didn't have any respiratory issues at all. She did. I had intermediate migraines and great fatigue and loss of energy. She didn't have that. So even though it hit us at the same time, it affected us very differently.
I see.
But other than that, yeah, that's really the only thing that I can recall about anything that's really memorable for us.
I guess, did you guys not travel a whole lot during 2020?
No, nope,
I was kind of the same
no,
way. I want to say later in 2020, though, we did go to Georgia, which was
yeah,
it was good with the parents. It was a little bit mixed crowd. Some people with masks on, some people not. So
yeah,
just act friendly and just keep moving along. Just go about your own business. That's the thing. So
yeah.
that's good to hear. And I guess, was there any sort of, normally I like to phrase this question too. I like to always be careful because obviously when we think of COVID, it's always like real bad too. But I guess, was there any sort of blessing in disguise that COVID kind of gave you?
Um, for sure. We actually did get to spend a little bit more time together as a family than normal. Just because, I have, my youngest is 15, my oldest is 26. So at that point in 2020, they pretty much have their own lives, and they're going here, they're going there. We really didn't see them as much as we used to when they were younger. So this kind of made it so that we were like playing board games, watching TV, we're watching movies together, and it kind of brought us back together. And hearing about what was going on in the world, where people were losing loved ones, and some people were getting very, very sick, it did bring into perspective how grateful we are for what we have.
Absolutely too. And it's good to see you and your family made it through COVID. So good to have
Yeah,
along you for the ride. So
yeah.
all right. So I guess try to at least bring a little bit more light to this. I guess here's a fun question I actually did bring to you. If you could meet a famous musician, I guess who would that be and why?
Just one.
Well, if you want to expand though, I guess start with who would be number one, and then if you want to do like four more, it's like a top five, then you can go ahead.
And deceased or still living, I assume, is okay.
We could do both. It could be either deceased or living. So,
Okay.
because I know there's a lot of people you would probably love to meet. I know a good number of people would probably like to meet, like Neil Peart, John Bonham, just like drummers like that. Maybe Hell, even Randy Rhoads, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So number one would probably be Chris Cornell. I am a huge Soundgarden fan. I've been a Soundgarden fan ever since 1989. My wife is a huge fan of anything Chris Cornell put his hands on. So yeah, he would probably be number one, just because of the influence he had on me as a person and as a musician. So let's see, I actually get four more.
Yeah, sure.
And living or deceased. So Adam Yauch, or MCA, as he's more well known, from the Beastie Boys. I always kind of liked the Beastie Boys, but in more recent years, my wife and I have really kind of gone neck deep with them. She's pretty much a Beastie Boys nut. If the Beastie Boys comes on the radio while we're driving in the car, you might want to do this because she's going to turn it up to the maximum volume. But when we dove into the Beastie Boys, we realized how brilliant Adam was and how much of their sound and persona and presence was him. And he was a really talented bass player on top of being MCA, you know what I mean? So, let's see, who else? I would say I would like to meet Jaco Pastorius, probably one of the most prolific bass players of all time. He's not with us anymore either. I would like to meet...
I was going to say, what group was he from?
He was his own, it was just solo music. So Jaco Pastorius, he may have actually been involved in something, and right now it's kind of escaping me. But usually it was like a trio, and mostly improv jazz type stuff. I will say I would like to meet Keith Richards, because, yeah, he's Keith Richards, and I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan, and he's still alive and kicking after everything he's endured. So Keith Richards, and I'll just go with one more because I don't want to get too long-winded. I would love to meet Debbie Harry. I think she would be really cool to meet. And, you know, Blondie's stuff was right on the edge of that post-punk era with the beginning of the disco type stuff. So she's kind of unique in that way where she sort of did both. And her song Rapture was probably the first time, I think it was Rapture anyway, probably the first time I heard anyone rap.
I want to say it wasn't one way or another, or what was the other one? Was it Heart of Glass? Was another big hit?
Heart of Glass is one of those as well. But I think Rapture is where she actually rapped. And I think that was one of the first times I ever heard that.
That's interesting. I did not know that. So, and all right, considering the list right now, I would say, funny enough, I was actually listening to a Soundgarden song last night, My Wave.
Oh, yeah.
From their Super Unknown album. So,
yep.
I always like it too because I love the drumming from it, but I can never figure out how to really count whenever there's like those certain breaks in between here and there. So, it's a difficult song, but it's enjoyable to listen to. So it's almost like I'm glad it's that drummer who's doing it, and then I'm just glad to be listening to it on the other side. So there was that, and he, I guess you could also count him for Audio Slave, since all the guys from Rage Against the Machine and him formed Audio Slave.
Yep.
And he and Chester Bennington. and may they
Yep.
both rest in peace. They collaborated on some things here and there too. So yeah, I can see what you mean. So good choice for Chris Cornell. Let's say, I think my dad did mention Jocko. I don't know if I ever really got into his style of music though, or anything though.
It's definitely unique.
And then, what did you say number two was? Was that
Adam Yao, MCA from Beastie Boys.
Beastie Boys? That's right. You know what? I was going to figure the joke thinking like, when What You Got comes on, that's when your car starts bouncing and everything too. It's like what you saw in LA with the big bass booms and everything too, and like the sonic suspension things that have the car bumping and everything too. So actually, I did do a cover from Beastie Boys. It was Sabotage. It was another big hit from them. So actually, it was a collaboration. That was actually my very first collaboration with drums by Ash Wells, who brought the idea to me. And I had to admit, I struggled with it because I had played it so much on the video game Rock Band, and
Right.
it's a lot different when you start playing it on the drums because there's a lot more hi-hat splashes. So, needless to say, a little frustration here and there too, but eventually I got through it. So, that's all I could say. So,
Nice.
and I know about Blondie a little bit, but mainly just because of her hits. Never really like fully got into her music too.
Yeah.
And number four was
Who else did I say? Oh my gosh.
as soon as we go back,
Keith Richards.
Keith Richards. That's right. Yeah.
Keith Richards.
Well, I guess you can't really complain. It's Keith Richards after all. Even though
Right, he's a legend, living legend.
I think he was the example that Lemmy Kilmister wanted to improvise or be like, I should say. That whole thing too. So, right.
Yeah.
Those are all good choices. So, all right.
Thank you.
So I guess since you already did talk about your guitars and everything too, I guess. So what brand are your picks?
Most of my picks are Jim Dunlop Tortex, like the ones with the little turtles on them. And I use super light and then medium light. So I don't really know what the millimeter thickness is, but they're the red ones and the orange ones. And then for bass, I always play with my fingers. I almost never use a pick for my bass.
I had to say, did you initially start off trying to do a pick with the bass, or did you just kind of jump right into playing with fingers?
It was always with fingers, and I never really got into slapping or popping. It's always just been finger picking, like say like Steve Harris from Iron Maiden or Geddy Lee from Rush does. I was always just trying to do that.
I don't know why I always thought they played with picks, to be honest. I don't know, they just jumped between every now and again, to be honest, because I could have sworn Steve Harris was playing with picks the one time. I wasn't sure.
Steve Harris is 100% playing with his fingers. Sometimes when you hear what he's playing, you think he must be playing with a pick because he does like a lot of triplets and stuff like that, but he'll use all four fingers.
Oh,
He's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I could say why too, I guess. Would you consider him like one of your biggest influences, or do you have like many others?
Oh yeah, there are many others, but definitely Steve Harris. Watching him play the bass was always a pleasure. Watching, some of those old Iron Maiden live VHS tapes that they used to put out back in the day, just knowing that he was one of the primary songwriters for Iron Maiden. So not only was he an excellent bass player, but he's an awesome songwriter.
Yeah, that's for sure. I guess is that top five? I guess who would you list as your top three? So you got Steve Harris, who's number 2 and 3.
Geddy Lee. Oh my gosh, there are so many. I'll say Les Claypool.
The bass player for Primus?
Primus, yeah. So Geddy Lee from Rush and Les Claypool from Primus, along with Steve Harris.
I'll say that's all bass players too. There's no guitar players in that mix, I guess.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, all right. I mean, that normally you have to like start off light with like, because I always think like treble is like the highest clef you can go to.
Yeah.
And then I know bass is like normally the more easier one to read. I know that, at least
Yeah.
that's how it was for me. I know trying to read tenor and treble was kind of a nightmare, to be honest. So, I can see what you mean there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think for bass, one of the main things, the way I look at it is, um, a lot of what the bass players do is foundational. Same with the drummers, right? So the drummer and the bass player need to be solid. Otherwise, the entire song or the entire performance could unravel if you're playing in a band setting. Um, and this, I don't think the same can be said for the other members of the band. I think the bass and the drums um, has more of a root, a foundation to what unfolds as the rest of the musicians do. You could have a great guitar player, but if his rhythm section is garbage, he's going to sound like garbage as well.
I think I would say more so for the drums, since they're the one that normally counts you in, for instance. You'll mention
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4, that sort of thing, too.
exactly.
Or normally the time, it's always hitting like the hi hat, that sort of thing, too, because that's normally the ones I at least see with like most of the live videos, for instance. So
Yep.
I would say more so the drummer, though, and then I think bass falls in the mix, trying to keep the rhythm section, and then guitar plays over top of it.
Right.
Being the one that tries to win the hearts of many of the women, per se.
Exactly.
Even though nowadays, I think the drummers are starting to take all the women now. So, and I was just trying to think of something to do. Shoot, I lost it. All right.
Oh, sorry.
Nah, I think it might come to me as we keep moving along here, too. So, they mentioned about influences. I guess, have you been a part of, like, any other groups? Because I know you talked about one earlier with one of your friends from church. So I guess, have you been a part of any other groups? And if so, elaborate.
Yeah, so back in the high school years, there was always garage bands that I was involved in. At first, I was the bass player. There was a guitar player and a drummer, and then the guitar player moved to New York, and then I sort of took over on guitar. And we really didn't do anything. We played in a garage, and we just we were kids. Um, and then there was another sort of basement band that I was involved in later on, sort of after graduation, and that didn't really last long either. But yeah, I started playing at church probably about 11 years ago, and have been pretty consistent on that church band rotation. Like I said, once or twice a month for the past 11 years or so. And then, so right before COVID, from between about 2016 to 2019, my good friend Richie Gill, who's the drummer that I mentioned earlier, that is my drummer, my sister, Adrienne Cascarella, and then different friends of ours who would fill in on bass. We formed a sort of a cover band that played a lot of open mic nights and a lot of bars. Just for that that 3-year period, we were called Bedlam. And once my sister moved to Colorado, she was the front woman. She did all the singing. And when she moved to Colorado, we had no more singer. So that kind of fell apart. And then after and that was right before COVID. So it sort of made sense as well, because we weren't going to be getting together and playing in anyone's basement, let alone outside at a local pub or bar, because they were all closed, or they were supposed to be all closed. So after a couple of years, after COVID started to be less in the forefront of everybody's minds and in society itself, I just started to play on my couch, in my living room, out back on the porch, and I figured I would just start recording some of the ideas that were coming into my head. I would play around with alternate tunings. I would play around with standard tunings, but up or down a half a step, or tuned to different frequencies. For instance, 432 hertz as opposed to standard 440 hertz is slightly flat, even though it's still standard tuning. There's something that some sort of like an old wives' tale, or like a sort of a conspiracy theory that 432 hertz is supposed to be the vibration of the universe, or the frequency of creation, or God's heavenly frequency, or something like that. But I don't know if that's all true, but I will say that when I tune to 432 and when I play in 432, it's definitely a different feel than the same song in 440. But I decided I was going to start to document this stuff just by recording myself on my phone. And then I decided to start an Instagram page and just upload them on there and see if I get any, interaction. And then I rebranded the Bedlam Facebook page to Atonal Ascent, and started cross-posting all the content from my Instagram page to the Facebook page. And that sort of took off more so than the Instagram page. And even though my sister still isn't around, she's still in Colorado, me and my good friend Richie Gill, we still do get together on a semi-regular basis and just jam in his basement. So if you go on my Facebook or Instagram, there are a couple of videos that you can see of us jamming, just me and him, and of us jamming with a couple of our other friends and just having fun. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I would say I am on your Facebook page, so I'm at least seeing some of the little posts you did put there. And I guess Morgan Gale kind of drew a picture for you for the some sort of county fair.
Yeah, so Morgan Gall is my youngest daughter's best friend, and she is a ridiculously talented artist. And when I was playing at the Burlington County Farm Fair in the middle of July, she came with a bunch of friends and my daughter, and she just kind of sat in the grass off to the side and drew that picture as I was performing. So that's pretty special.
She'll be the next Michelangelo before you know it. So
yeah, she's a ridiculously talented young lady.
That's good to see. And I do remember what I was going to say earlier. It was actually mainly going to be a joke. I was going to say, drummers can at least hit things legally, we should say. So, and as hard as we want to. So
nice.
So that's one. So that's one of the big plus of being a drummer too, outside of also being the conductor of the whole group and keeping the band together, that sort of thing.
For sure.
So that's pretty cool. I have to admit, boy, it's a lot of groups you guys have been a part of as well. And for some reason, when you were talking about your sister, I was thinking this band must have been kind of similar to how Heart was, for instance, the one who sings like Barracuda or Magic Man. I was probably picturing her like singing. Did you guys ever cover anything from Heart?
We did not, but we did do Fleetwood Mac. So she would get her best Stevie Nicks on, and we would do a couple of Fleetwood Mac tunes. Every once in a while, we would do. Actually, to be honest, there were no other songs that we did as covers that were originally sung by females, except for the Fleetwood Mac songs.
What was it? Did you do Go Your Own Way?
No, actually, it was Gold Dust Woman.
I did not hear that one, though.
That was pretty much it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
All right, fair enough. Actually, you know what? I was hearing Go Your Own Way last night because I work a second job at a local restaurant, and on his playlist, you would hear Fleetwood Mac come on, but it's mainly like, it's a couple of their big hits, but like the main one has been Go Your Own Way. So
Yep.
That's why I wasn't sure if you guys were just doing the big hits or whether you branched out every now and again. But I guess, did you guys ever branch out and play like maybe lesser known songs from like maybe certain artists here and there?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we did together as Bedlam, we did try to make sure that we did some songs that were recognizable, but also some songs that were obscure that only certain people would recognize. And for me, now as Atonal Ascent and doing these, once every once in a while shows acoustically, I also try to do the same thing. I love the obscure songs that are from popular artists. But every once in a while, you have to sort of throw a popular song in there too, so that people don't shut off.
I can understand why. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that stinks about the radio too. And I think my dad, he had told me there were different radio stations. And I think one that would, I think it was FM. And I'm trying to make sure I'm phrasing this right too, because I think the FM station, they would play the lesser known songs from like hit albums, for instance. Whereas I think AM would do like, all your big hits and everything too, some big artists. And I think the problem was with the FM station, it would come on later at night, maybe somewhere along the graveyard shift. So I think even though they were still playing those songs on the radio, they probably weren't still getting the big exposure like they should have been. So
Exactly.
oh well. But I guess speaking of your name, Atonal Ascent, I guess first off, how did you come up with the name? Then we'll jump into some of your social media.
Yeah. So when I was creating the Instagram page and rebranding the Facebook page, I was trying to come up with something that was a sort of an explanation of who I am as a person and a musician, and who I would like to be in the future as a person and a musician. So atonal, of course, is it defined as outside of the norm of accepted music standard. When you say the word atonal, usually it's connected with, or it brings to mind, a wrong note, or a note that is in key but doesn't quite fit. So I felt like that described me as a person, a little bit out of the norm, or maybe in the norm but not quite fit in, and also maybe not as musically precise and clean and professional as I would like to be. But the word ascent is describing traveling from a lower point to a higher point. So I feel like that is kind of the journey that I'm on. I feel like I may not be the best person on the face of the planet, but I would like to be the best human being that I can be, for my family, for my friends, and for the people that I come in contact with every day that are strangers. And musically, I would like to ascend to a better place as far as my skill level is concerned. So that kind of just, atonal ascent. And I went and Google searched it and made sure that there were no other bands that had that name, just in case I ever actually did form a band and we ever did do anything. But yeah, so that's where that came from.
That's just a story. And I guess also make sure that you weren't accidentally using a terminology that meant, maybe in your mind it meant something like this, but then it meant something else to somebody else. So
Exactly.
kind of like how that slang, or I guess maybe some sort of language barriers tend to go to. So, but that's pretty cool. And you also did your research, so hats off to you,
Yeah.
mate. So I guess Going into your YouTube channel, I guess also Facebook and Instagram, is those the three you use, or do you use any others?
Those are the only three platforms that I'm on right now. I toyed with doing TikTok. I've toyed with doing Spotify, but I don't have any recorded music to put on Spotify, at least not yet. That may be something that's coming within the next year, hopefully, because I'm trying to work on some stuff. It's just, like we talked about earlier, sometimes family life, work life, and life in general definitely take a priority for me anyway, to exploring what is going on in my head musically. I've just kind of been mostly focused on the Facebook page just because that's where I've been getting the most traction. So, those are the only three right now.
Well, I guess speaking of which, and you might have already touched on this too, is there something like you hope to achieve with any of your social media channels? I guess more so with Facebook now?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just to share what's coming out of me with other people, hoping that they get something out of it. As a document, to document the journey that I'm on, for my own reference and for other people to see, and just so that there is some sort of foundation there, like I said, in case within a year or so something does come to fruition of all of this, and we need something as a springboard, social media wise. So it's already kind of there with a little bit of backstory and history in place.
We'll say eventually we reach the top of the charts, for instance, or something happens. So I mean, one day you're at the bottom of the world, next thing you know you're on top of the world. So I mean, anything could happen. So
exactly.
Yeah, best of luck on your journey there, mate. And I don't know if you did touch on it, because earlier when you were talking about your guitars, did you mention what sort of microphones you use and speakers whenever you're performing? And I guess who was taking the videos for you, and what sort of editing software do you use?
So the two times that, or any of the times that we performed, there was always some sort of backline provided. So I don't own a PA system. The only microphone I have is a Shure, I think it's an SM58. That's the only microphone I have, and it's kind of just hidden away right now. I rarely ever use it. When I'm performing and someone's recording, it's basically just an iPhone with a decent camera, like one of the most recent iPhones, on a tripod, and my wife is the one behind the camera. And the editing is pretty much done either within YouTube or Instagram. So they have very minimal editing options, and I kind of just use that to trim off the first couple of seconds of me sitting down and hitting the record button, and then to trim off the last couple of seconds of me leaning forward and hitting the stop button. Just kind of real simple. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than just the amplifiers that I have, no other speaker systems.
Hey, sometimes simple is really all you really need, to be honest, too. I would
Right.
say I do kind of go a little bit crazy with mine, because first off, are you a Windows user or are you a Mac user?
Mac, 100%.
You're a Mac. Actually, they come with Final Cut Pro, but that's a separate thing you have to buy. It's only one-time payment and stuff like that too. But I use that too, and it really helps me with doing these podcast interviews, with just editing the sound and everything too. So I guess, does it come with some sort of presets, or are you just using it strictly for trimming the beginning and end off?
Yeah, just strictly for trimming the beginning and the end off. I kind of decided when I was going to start doing this that I was going to just have it be like organic and honest and transparent and authentic. I didn't want, not that there's anything wrong with musicians that put a lot of work into putting something polished and clean out there. If you're marketing yourself and you're presenting yourself as a product, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making sure that everything is the way you want it before you put it out there for the world. That's just not where I am at my stage, at this stage in my journey. Everything is just, if you'll notice if you go onto my pages that there are a couple of videos in there where there's mistakes, and I stop in the middle of my mistake and I laugh and then I keep going. It's just, that's the way I decided I was going to document what I'm doing, part of my journey. So yeah, it's just real simple, real straightforward, and it's just whatever Instagram, when I hit, upload this video to Instagram, and it gives me this option to just trim off a little bit at the beginning and the end, and then that's it. And then I don't even edit the sound or anything. So maybe one of these days, if I get an actual a better computer, we really don't have that great of a computer right now. So once I get a better computer, hopefully I'll be able to do stuff that's a little more involved.
Yeah, see, I would say Final Cut Pro, it's not too bad. You just need to kind of expose yourself to it a couple of times. But normally they'll have the presets for you, because normally it's just, let me make sure I say it right. It's an EQ, compressor, and adaptive limiter. It just has the presets right there for you. It does the whole process, so it's really nice. So
yeah, it sounds pretty straightforward.
I would say it definitely eats up space. So if you get a new computer, make sure you get a whole lot of space and a good amount of RAM too. So that's a lesson I learned too. So that's kind of been the hard way for me. So I do have to ask.
Learning curve.
I would say, were you a big fan of Tom and Jerry?
Yes, 100%. Loved it. Still love it.
You know what? Who's one of Jerry's uncles? And it was the one that kind of had like the long mustache with the cowboy hat on.
Oh my gosh! I hear the song. But I can't think of the character's name. Oh my goodness!
I was gonna say Uncle Ruckus for some reason, because I thought that was what it was, but no, I don't think it was.
Maybe
it might have been Pecos. It might have been Uncle Pecos, maybe. So, you know what? As soon as we check it out, we're gonna slap ourselves over the head for not remembering too.
Oh heck yeah! Because I'm gonna go Google it as soon as we end the interview.
when you were talking about saying like, "Hey, I leave my mistakes in there too," I'm just thinking like, he would probably do something like that too. To just be like, "That's the real tough part right there, folks," that sort of thing.
Yep.
Or like something along those lines too. And that's that hard part again. And actually, who was that voice actor? I think he was a. Fuck, I can't remember either. I think he was in like other shows too. He was definitely ones who like spoke real fast and that sort of thing. And it was, I don't want to say it was a parody of like the country western sort of thing too, or anything like that. But it was actually pretty funny too, and like he.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. So it just reminded me of that too. So like I said, at least qualifies for one of the fun questions, like favorite TV show. So, but I guess we did breeze through all the questions here. I guess let's jump into some fun ones here. Some extra fun ones, we should say, because I think we already covered two of them. So, so what is your favorite drink, both in terms of alcohol and non-alcoholic?
So we'll start with alcoholic. My favorite is a dry gin martini, and usually it's with tons of extra olive juice, so then you would order it a filthy dry gin martini. So that's for the alcoholic beverage, which actually I stopped drinking approximately 10 days ago, just to keep myself in check a little bit. So I don't know if I'm going to go back to it. My initial aim was to go 2 weeks, and I'm 10 days now. So after the 2 weeks, I intended on reassessing to see whether I was going to get back into it or not. And I don't know, we'll see how I feel. But it's a pretty big part of our lives. My wife and I are what you could call whiskey connoisseurs. So we really love bourbon, we really love rye, we really love Scotch and Irish whiskey as well. But yeah, I just had to keep myself in check a little bit. A couple warning signs, probably a couple little warning shots across the bow. So I'm definitely taking a break. But non-alcoholic, I would say cranberry juice and orange juice in equal parts on ice.
I'm gonna say, yeah, that's definitely new. I think most people would always say like water or some sort of tea, to be honest. So
Yeah,
we're branching out right now. That's awesome.
yeah. I
I
mean,
was gonna.
coffee I love. Who doesn't love coffee? Coffee's huge, right? But for me, coffee is sort of like an automatic. So I just, but if you haven't tried cranberry juice and orange juice in equal parts together in a glass, you have to. Tons of ice. It's amazing.
I would say it almost sounds like a recipe for a different sort of alcoholic drink, to be honest.
You could add any type of alcohol you want in there, and I'm sure it would taste delicious.
I think I might have to. I'll have to see about that one. Actually, I'm going to blow your mind right now because I don't like coffee.
Okay.
I would say I've had a little bad experiences with it too, and I've never really understood it.
Yeah.
So, which I guess is a good
Not
thing
for
too.
everyone.
I would say it's
Yeah.
probably a good thing because I mean they always talk about the bad effects of coffee too, of like how much it does high blood pressure or anything like that too, and the heart's like probably pounding out of the chest like too, it's like that sort of thing.
Yep.
They say like how the cartoons would always do it too. So,
Yep.
and I was also gonna make a joke saying like we were getting to a point where we were making some choices we might end up regretting at some point in terms of the alcohol.
Maybe.
So, all right, that's cool. And I guess partial congrats with 10 days somewhat sober, I guess, or are we just trying to moderate it now?
No alcohol at all for 10 days, and again, it's not necessarily me giving it up, but it's just me putting myself in check and going about my normal life activities with my wife still having her Manhattans, my friends coming over and they're drinking and I'm not. I just wanted to make sure that I can do that normal life without having to grab the bottle. And so far so good. And it hasn't really been that difficult for me. I know that other people really have a hard time with it. They get into a lot of physical pain and go through periods of depression. But for me, it hasn't been that bad. So, which in my opinion is a good sign. But yeah, thank you for the congratulations.
No worries. And I say good luck. So I hope it doesn't start eating at you pretty soon, though. So it was starting the cold sweats or the bad sleeping nights, that sort of thing. So
yeah, so far so good.
All right, we'll see what happens. All right. So next one here. What is currently your favorite food?
Wow, there's so many, Brian. Really, oh my gosh.
I mean, you're a Philly guy, so I'd assume a Philly cheesesteak, to be honest. So.
Oh yes, I love food. I'm Italian, coming from an Italian household, born in South Philadelphia, raised in South Jersey. Food is big with us. But yes, cheesesteaks. Oh my gosh, fried onions, nothing else. Just fried onions, American cheese. There's actually a place about 15 minutes from my house in the center of town, of a little town called Mount Holly, New Jersey. You may have heard of it. It's a very historic town here, not too far from me. And there's a place called Downtown Pizza on High Street in Mount Holly, and they have what is called a garlic bread cheesesteak. So they take garlic bread and then put chip steak, American cheese, and fried onions and ketchup in the middle of the garlic bread. It's unbelievable.
Well, that does sound good, actually.
Unbelievable. The garlic bread cheesesteak. All right, we'll go with that. Yes, the garlic bread cheesesteak is my favorite food right now.
All right, fair enough, yeah. Actually, when you come out to Pittsburgh, too, you tend to notice that we like, at least for like certain meals, too. It's not like we do it for like everything. I'm assuming you heard about Permanis, and that's our place, right?
No, what's that?
Permanis it's more strictly within the, I don't know if they started branching out to different parts of the states, but they're mainly headquartered in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
That's when they start putting the burgers and you had the coleslaw, fries, and that sort of thing mixed together. So that's where it all originated too. So
that sounds awesome.
You'll find out us Pennsylvanians and I guess to a certain extent New Jerseyans tend to like mixing food together at certain points too. So I was
Like
actually
go ahead.
I was gonna say I remember doing the Texas toast, which is the same thing as like garlic toast, for instance. And actually, I remember using that as like buns for like one of my burgers, which is actually pretty damn good. I strongly
I'll
recommend it.
bet.
So
I'll bet. Yeah. So I guess maybe 10 years ago or so, I started to see the breakfast burger appear, which is, I'm sure you've heard of it and I'm sure you've had one. It's a hamburger or a cheeseburger with bacon and a fried egg on top. And then, like, who thinks of that? But it's brilliant because it's delicious. Can I change my answer to the breakfast burger?
I mean, we can say that's your breakfast. I mean, would you say the garlic bread is lunch and dinner?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, there we go.
I guess why don't we throw dessert? What's for dessert?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Oh, boy. A black and white malted milkshake.
I was mostly thinking of like the cookies and cream or the blizzards that like Dairy Queen kind of throw together at times. I know I'll eat those all day, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I guess this one in particular, is it like an ice cream or something, or what is it?
Yeah, so it's sort of like a Philly soda shop type thing where they would take chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, and blend that together and make a milkshake out of that with, they put some milk in it to dilute it. So that gives you your black and white because it's chocolate and vanilla. And then it gets, however much, maybe like a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of malt powder in the mix with that. And it's just amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it's like a local ice cream shop type place has the best ones. There's a place around the corner from me called Nellie's, which is like an old style ice cream parlor, decorated, 30s and 40s, 50s decor, and their claim to fame is that all their ice cream is handmade on site, and then they have these recipes for all the special stuff that they do, and their milkshakes are just amazing.
And that's strictly in Philadelphia, or is this kind of in your neck of the woods too?
It's my neck of the woods as well. Yep.
I'll have to check it out next time we swing over to Cape May, whatever that may be, to be honest, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure you could get. There's got to be an ice cream place that'll make you a milkshake in K-May. Yes, malted milkshake, black and white. Yeah.
All right. I think I'll get my eyes open next time. So.
Nice.
All right. And what's currently your favorite movie?
That's also a hard one. Anything. I know this is real general. I'm going to start by saying I will narrow it down to one, but I'm going to start by saying anything Coen Brothers. I'll narrow that down to one because it's a big. There's a lot of movies that they put out over the years. One of the songs that I always stop and watch when it's on, if I'm flipping through channels, is No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, I know that one.
Masterpiece of a movie. The dialogue, the action, the storyline, the overall message of it is just amazing. The acting is just, the characters is just amazing.
Yeah, I would say, who was it? Javier Bardem? Was that the guy who played
the bad guy?
The bad guy,
yeah.
Anton Chigurh. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. It was like, damn, that is good. But there wasn't a whole lot of music in it. It may have done it like maybe at one part where they killed the protagonist, those guys who were part of the Mexican cartel. It was more like dramatic, sort of build up suspenseful music too. But
right.
So that was one thing I always applaud them for, because it was just more of let the scene play it out, because there's no music playing when it's like a chase scene in real life. So it's almost like make it look real. So
yeah,
so hats off to them.
I think the Coen brothers are real big on that type of thing. The scenes developing on their own, and the dialogue is always front and center in all of their movies.
Absolutely, and it's a hell of a great choice too. So I think think my dad might actually have like the book, and I think there were some things that were slightly different, but I think they were, for the most part, 95% spot on with like what was going on. So
Yeah,
I might have to check on that. Then as soon as you read it, you'll be like, oh wait, they did this different. They did this different. So,
yeah,
but maybe for the better too. So I know that's how it
right.
was with Game of Thrones, to be honest. So, and the last one, what is currently your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
Oh boy, favorite song is really what that would really be hard to nail down. There are way too many. Um, so I guess most of the time when I'm listening to music, it's in my car, morning, afternoon commute to and from work, or going out to the store to grab something, or you know what I mean, going to the home repair shop for a bunch of lumber or something like that. So I'll go with what my go-to is when I hop in my car and get ready to drive. Um, so there is a Black Sabbath song called Supernaut. You may have heard that. It's off of Volume 4. 1974, I believe it was released.
A good number of times, actually.
Yeah. So Ministry, Al Jorgensen, did a cover of that. And then a collaborative side project that featured Al Jorgensen of Ministry and Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails um, covered Ministry's cover of the Supernaut song of Black Sabbath. So that was billed as 1,000 Homo DJs. That was the Al Jorgensen and Trent Reznor supergroup, because there were other guys involved in that. But they did two versions of Supernaut, one with Al Jorgensen on vocals and one with Trent Reznor on vocals. The one with Trent Reznor on vocals is my go-to.
I was like, man, he definitely does a good amount of covers because I know he did one with Johnny Cash's song "Hurts," and then
Yes.
I was like, damn, it was always like, take it, that sort of thing. And
Yeah. And
if he's able to do that, I imagine he'd do it pretty well with Supernaut too. But what were you gonna say?
It's amazing. Yeah, actually, if you know, so Gary Newman was an '80s musician, and one of his famous songs was a song called "Cars," and so that's actually something that would actually be really cool to check out as well.
I would say, yeah, anything Trent Reznor does, he never really disappoints too much. So that's for sure.
Agreed.
All right, but Chris, we're kind of near the end of my podcast right here. I guess did you have any questions for me or any final words you want to say before we jump into the final question?
No, just that I really appreciate talking to you and the opportunity to just let you guys know, or at least let you know some of my backstory and where I'm headed and where I've come from, and in turn letting other people know that as well. And I think what you're doing here with your podcast is great. Giving lesser known and independent musicians a voice and the opportunity to be heard. Yeah, I think it's awesome, and I appreciate you.
No worries. And needless to say, thanks to Vox and Sticks, my list has greatly expanded ever since joining the band together. Especially as it seems like it keeps growing from 3,000. I think it's going to hit 4,000 pretty soon, because I thought one day I saw it was like 3.1, and then maybe even the next day or maybe a couple of days later it was like 3.6 or something like that too.
So, won't be long now.
Yep, our list keeps growing, that's for sure too. So we'll see what happens. But best of luck in everybody's journey. And Chris, for the last question right here, this is one I always like to ask too. But given what COVID has done, what sort of message of hope would you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
I'll sort of turn it back to what I like most about music. One of the questions you asked earlier, and my answer was that it's therapeutic for me. And I know that there are a lot of people that are that are doing music, and they have a lot of ambition, and they want to make music their career, and they want to do it to have an effect, a positive effect on the world, and they want to connect with people that way, and do music as a profession. And I think that's awesome. And I would just like to say that sometimes things don't work out quite the way we envision them and the way we would like them to work out. But in my opinion, according to what I believe, everything works out. God works everything out for the greater good of those who believe and of the world in general. And keeping that in mind will help you on your journey as a musician. Things don't always work out the way they should, but God has everything in control, and everything that's happening is the way it's supposed to happen. That's the way. That's what I would say.
Spoken like a true prodigy. So, all right. So, everyone, my guest today was Chris, aka Atonal Ascent, and go check him out on socials. Make sure you have him up on his YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram pages. And I guess, Chris, do you have any final words or any shout outs you want to say before we officially close?
No, not really. Just well, yeah, I would actually like to shout out my wife, Bobby Cascarella. She is so supportive of what I'm doing and who I am. I wouldn't be who I am or where I am today if it wasn't for her. She is my cheerleading section. She is my scheduling department. She is my therapist. And actually, Christina from Vox and Guest said she is the CEO of your life, is basically how she described it. And that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want to say a dirty joke there, but well, I digress. We'll just say that's our thing too. So she's there for you when she needs you, when you need her the most. So that's pretty cool. So, Chris, thank you again so much again for coming on. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, y'all.
All right.